Hello, everybody, and welcome back to EDC Array. Today, I want to talk about a thought experiment I've been kicking around in my head for a little bit, and this here is not it. This is something that's been done by Nick Shabazz. I'm sure you may have seen it. This is the curve of diminishing returns, but I wanted to use this in conjunction with another curve I'll show you here in a bit to kind of, you know, explain what I'm getting at. And what I'm getting at is evaluating your EDC, right? Evaluating your carry. And it's something that I kind of was forced to do at some point because something happened, and I'll explain that, where I just realized that, I have all this money tied into stuff, and is it really necessary? But let's get into this. So if you don't know how this works, the curve of diminishing returns is, let's say you buy a knife, right? And let's say you buy a knife, and I'm not saying this was $50, but you buy a $50 knife, right? And that knife, yeah, it's okay. It does the job. It's probably, today I think you can get a pretty decent knife for about $50, $60. So, it's a decent knife. But then you say, maybe I want something a little nicer. It's like the hedonic treadmill. We get used to something, and maybe we can get better. So they say, I'm gonna spend double. I'm gonna go from a $50 to $100 knife, and for that $100, you're getting more than twice. You're paying double, but you're getting more than twice the return on it, right? So your return, let's say, if $50 is here, $100 might be here. You're getting a lot more return for that knife. But let's say you take that $100 and you say, I want something a little better, and you spend double the money again. You spend $200. Well, now your return's not as much. So you're still getting better. You're still getting a nicer knife, but it's not as much of a return for that knife. The little differences, the minute differences, are more nuanced, and they're not as pronounced as was between the $50 and the $100 knife. In my case, where I went from I paid $200 for this to $500 for this, the differences aren't that much. This is like, I would say this is arguably about 90% as good a knife as this. But the little nuanced differences in this they're worth it to me. It's worth it to me for that. And what I'm getting at is, as you get into your hobbies, you're gonna decide that you want maybe a little more. You're gonna learn more, and then you'll say, hey, maybe I want something a little better, and then you'll be willing to spend more on that. Now, I'm not here to have a discussion about your spending habits. That's not what this is. What I want to talk about is when you go too far, right? Like, I feel like in some instances I went too far. Like with in my example that I'll share later, it's with watches. I went a little too far. And eventually on this curve is still going up, but as you could see, it's plateauing, because the more you spend, the less return you're getting. You're only getting a minute difference, and that difference may be still better, but it's still minute. You're not getting as good of a difference as you once did, but those differences depend on the person. Maybe that difference means a lot to you versus someone that may not be as interested, right? This is a very individual kind of thing. This is going to be for you and you alone, and this is something that you would have to decide for yourself where you think you are on this curve. Now, the second curve I want to talk about is the cost carry comfort curve, and I'll put this one away for now. And the cost carry comfort curve is a little different. So here you have amount of money, and this would be like $0, and this would be X amount of a lot of dollars. Your carryability is here. How much, what percentage are you willing to carry it, right? On this side, the less you spend on it, the less likely you would be to carry it would be because you don't really like the item, right? Let's say you bought a really cheap watch at Walmart and you're like, I like it, but I want better. You're not comfortable carrying that thing. You want something better. So you get better. And the more you find your spot on this curve, the amount of money that you spend correlates with the amount of percentage that you're going to carry it, right? So 100% carry, the perfect point on this curve would be a 100% comfortability with the max amount of money you're willing to spend. But then you get to this side and then you start spending kind of outside your comfort zone. So you spend it on something that you may not use or carry anymore, right? You're not going to want to, if you buy a backpack for $1,000, you might not really want to use that backpack that much for what it was intended for. And that's an extreme example, but it's just it's an exaggerated example just to get my point across. For me, this happened with watches. I had a very expensive watch. It was a Sinn 556 ARS, the red seconds hand with the Arabics. And I wouldn't carry, I had other nice watches too. That wasn't the only one, but I wouldn't carry them at work, wear them at work. I say carry, but I mean wear. I would not wear them to work, which is fine. Something that's that nice. That's, I work around tools that can really hurt something, right? If a tool comes apart in my hand, it could really damage something, not only just the things, but it could damage me. So what I would take it off, and then at the end of the workday I'd put it back on just so I get a little enjoyment from wearing it. Well, I dropped it on the concrete. And although Sinn makes a very tough watch, when I dropped it, I realized, what am I doing? I have all this money tied up into watches that I'm not really willing to to wear 100% of the time. And that's where I'm not wearing it. I'm not comfortable wearing it 100%, obviously. And so, and again, you have to have room for passion, right? Like if you're passionate about the things that you have and that you carry, I'm not saying just because you don't use them that you're doing something wrong. If you buy something and you're okay with putting it and you put it on a shelf and that's how you get enjoyment from it, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with how you enjoy your things. That's not what this is about. This is more of a personal thing as well, but also, it's just an idea of evaluating one's EDC, right? So I started looking at these two curves at that point, and I kind of went like, I don't really want to carry. I don't want to wear these watches anymore. So I ended up selling them all off, and I've been sticking with digital watches ever since. I wear them. I don't have to worry about them. It's no big deal, right? So yeah. Maybe if you'd like, think about these curves. Think about where you find yourself on these curves. Are you okay with, like me, I'm okay with having spent this much on a knife, but if I spent any more, I don't know if I'd be as okay with it, right? This one was $500. This one with the glass blast finish was $550. And for me, I'm okay with that. Anything more, and I'd be less willing to carry it, less willing to use it. And I don't feel like I'm getting the amount of return that I am comfortable with. Same thing with pens. You could apply this to anything, right? Like this is $100 pen, and that's about all I'm willing to spend on a pen and carry it comfortably. Like anymore, and I'm just not going to really want it or be interested in it, right? And again, you can apply this to anything. Cars, motorcycles, anything, a flashlight, anything that you use. Because at the end of the day, whether you spent $500 on a knife, $200 on a knife, or, $50 on a knife, you essentially you spent money on something that's still going to do the same thing, which is cut something, right? yeah, I get more enjoyment from cutting things with this or this than I would with a $50 knife, but it still cuts. Same thing with a watch. Whether I spend $200 on a watch, $100, $500, or $10,000 like on a Rolex, all it does at the end of the day is tell the time. And again, I'm not saying that oh that wanting expensive items is dumb. I'm not making that argument. What I'm saying is that sometimes it kind of can be good to kind of bring yourself down to earth and think about, hey, how comfortable am I carrying these things? If you're the type of person like me that likes to use his stuff, then that's great. If you're the type of person that gets enjoyment from, you know, just having it and having it on display and enjoying just looking at it and occasionally holding it, that's fine too. And that curve, you might be on a different place on these curves if that's what you like. Me, I'm the type of person I like to use my stuff. So when I'm not using it, it kind of makes me go like, why do I have this? And so for me, these curves have been very valuable in helping me evaluate my carry. And I think, if you are interested, definitely let me know. Let me know if this has prompted an idea in you. Let me know if you agree with me or if you disagree with me. You can go ahead and tell me to kick rocks if you like. But thank you for watching and thank you for listening. God bless you guys and your family. And remember, Jesus loves you. Bye-bye.